What you're about to hear is not just another motivational speech. This is a raw, unfiltered journey into the battlefield of the mind, a deep dive into the truth most people run from. This isn't sugar-coated inspiration or surface-level hype. This is war. A war between the version of you that wants to rise and the version of you that keeps pulling you back. You didn't find this by chance. Something in you is ready to stop waiting, ready to stop running, ready to take ownership of every second, every thought, every breath. This is where the old you ends and the new one begins. So get still, get focused. Let these words hit your heart, not just your ears. You're not here to be entertained, you're here to be changed. Welcome to the shift. Welcome to the fire. Welcome to the audio book that reminds you who you really are. Let's begin. Your mind doesn't care about your goals, it only cares about comfort. Train it, or be controlled by it. Let that sink in, because that truth right there is the reason why most people never become who they were born to be. Your mind is not your enemy, but it's not your friend either, not until you make it your servant. And it doesn't become your servant through wishful thinking, affirmations alone, or hoping you'll wake up motivated tomorrow. It becomes your servant through discipline, through repetition, through control. You don't beg your mind to fall. In line you command it, because left on its own, the mind will always drift toward what's easy, what's familiar, what's safe, and unfortunately, your dreams don't live in that zone. They live in the unknown, in the difficult, in the painful. They live where your comfort ends. See, your goals are a threat to your mind. They're not just ambitions, they're disruptions. You're talking about waking up early when your mind wants to sleep in. You're talking about running when your body aches. You're talking about risking failure, looking like a fool, pushing your limits, all things the mind was biologically designed to avoid. So when you set goals, real goals, meaningful ones, your mind's first instinct is defense. It says, let's play it safe. Let's not try too hard. Let's stick with what we know. We've survived this far, haven't we? That's the trap. You think your thoughts are always on your side. You think because it's your mind, it must be aligned with your dreams. But it's not. Not at first. It's aligned with survival. Your goals, your growth, your greatness, those things aren't comfortable. They're not familiar. So your mind resists, not because it hates you, but because it's still operating like you're in a cave fighting saber-toothed tigers. It doesn't realize that pain is no longer your enemy, it's your pathway. This is where people go wrong. They think discomfort is the sign to back off. They think the fear, the fatigue, the hesitation that it all means something's wrong. But that's the exact moment something is right. That's the friction point. That's the resistance that forges the strong. If you feel it, it means you're doing the work. It means you're going where most never go. And if you back down in that moment, you reinforce the same program that's kept you stuck. But if you push through just once, just for one more rep, one more call, one more day, you start to rewire everything. Understand this. The mind is plastic. It can be reshaped, but not by wishing, by working. Every time you override the default, you carve a new pattern. Every time you say no to comfort and yes to discipline, you build a new standard. You teach your mind, I'm in control. I decide when we rest. I decide when we stop. I decide what we're capable of. And eventually, your mind listens. It adapts, because the mind isn't fixed, it's programmable. But you have to do the programming. That's what training your mind looks like. It's not sexy. It's not flashy. It's boring. It's consistent. It's repetitive. It's waking up when you don't want to. It's saying no when everything in you wants to say yes. It's running the extra mile, making the hard call, doing the thing you promised long after the mood you made the promise in is gone. That's training. That's how you earn mental control. And make no mistake, you have to earn it. You don't get to lead your life if you haven't earned the right to lead your mind. And don't confuse talent with training. Some people are naturally optimistic. Some are naturally driven. Good for them. But if you're not, you can become that. Through discipline, through reps, through the slow, daily process of saying, this is who I am now. This is what I do now. You don't wait to feel like it. You do it until it becomes natural, until the mind shifts and says, okay, this is who we are now. And that shift is real. That identity change, it's the most powerful thing you can create. Because when your identity aligns with your goals, nothing can stop you. But if your mind still identifies with comfort, no amount of motivation will save you. Think about what comfort has cost you already. Think about the moments you stayed silent instead of speaking up. The days you didn't show up because you were tired. The nights you scrolled instead of worked. Think about the years wasted waiting to feel ready, waiting to not be afraid, waiting for the right time. And ask yourself honestly, how much of that was the world and how much of that was your own? Mind, you can't keep blaming the world for the war inside your head. The battle isn't out there, it's in here. Between your standards and your excuses, between your mission and your mood, between who you are and who your mind keeps telling you to be. You've got to choose every day. And the only way to win is to train harder than the voice that wants to stop you. So how do you do that? You start small, but you start now. Don't wait until Monday. Don't wait until the first of the month. The delay is the lie. That voice saying tomorrow is the same voice that will say it again the next day, and the next, and the next until you die with your potential still locked inside you. So start today. One promise to yourself, one task completed, one thing done that you didn't want to do. That's how you build trust. That's how you build momentum. That's how you train your mind. And every time you do it, you stack proof. You say, see, I don't have to listen to that voice. I can be tired and still show up. I can be scared and still move forward. I can be uncertain and still take action. You teach your brain that discipline trumps doubt, that movement kills fear, that standards beat feelings every time, because that's what this is really about, standards. What are yours when it's hard, when it's cold, when you're stressed? Do you show up anyway? Do you hold the line? Because your standards are not what you say they are, they're what you accept. You say you want excellence, but if you accept average behavior, you don't want excellence. You say you want discipline, but if you skip the reps when it's inconvenient, you don't want discipline, you want comfort. And that's fine if you're okay with average. But if you're not, if you want more, if you're hungry, if you refuse to die with your music still in you, then you need to kill comfort before it kills your calling. And yes, it will fight back. The moment you try to change, the mind will panic. It'll throw every excuse it has. You're tired. You've earned a break. What's one day you're different? You can't do this. And you'll feel it. It'll feel real. But it's not. It's just the system trying to stay the same. The machine defending itself. That resistance isn't weakness, it's a sign you're on the edge of growth. That's where you lean in. Because the more you confront that resistance, the weaker it gets. At first, it's loud. It screams. But if you ignore it long enough, it starts to whisper, and eventually it goes silent, not because it's gone, but because it knows it doesn't run you anymore. You run it. You made it submit. And that's when freedom begins. But the work never ends. You can't train once and expect to be free forever. Control is a daily decision. Discipline is a daily choice. You wake up every day and take the throne again. You prove again that you are in charge, that you command the mission, that you control the mind, because the alternative is slavery, quiet, subtle slavery to a mind that doesn't care about your future, a mind that only wants you safe, small, and stuck, a mind that will kill your purpose if you let it. And you were not born for that. You were born to rise, to dominate, to build, to lead. But you can't do any of that from the passenger seat. You have to take the wheel. You have to become the one in charge. So remember this. Every time it's hard, every time it hurts, every time you want to quit, that's the moment your mind is testing you. It's asking, do you really want this? Or are you just pretending, and your actions are the answer? Not your words, not your intentions, your actions. You either train the mind, or you live at its mercy. There's no middle ground. Control it, or be controlled. You don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your mental training. People love to set goals. It makes them feel powerful, hopeful, like they're finally turning a corner. Every new year, every Monday morning, every birthday, people write down the goals, big dreams, bold plans, lists of everything they want to become. And don't get me wrong, goals are important, but they're not magic. They're not a solution. They're not a strategy. They're a direction, a starting point, a declaration of where you want to go. But what determines whether you actually get there isn't how inspiring your goals are, it's how deeply trained your mind is when everything goes sideways. Because guess what? Life doesn't care about your goals. The world isn't going to bend just because you wrote something in a notebook. Resistance will come. Distractions will come. Hard days will come. Boredom will come. Self-doubt will come. And when they do, your goals won't save you, your habits will. Your mental systems, your daily disciplines, your standards, that's what you fall to when the pressure hits. That's your real foundation. That's what separates the people who dream from the people who build. See, anyone can be motivated for a moment. Anybody can get fired up for a few hours. But motivation fades, emotion fades, energy fades. And when it does, what are you left with? Are you still moving, still executing, still showing up? Or do you collapse? Do you disappear the moment it's no longer exciting? That's the difference. That's the gap between intention and reality. That's the line between fantasy and mastery. Your results don't rise to meet your goals, they default to the level of your systems, your training, your mental habits. When no one is watching, you say you want greatness. You say you want to be elite. You say you want to change your life. But when the alarm rings at 5 a.m., what happens? When it's cold outside, when your body aches, when the voice in your head says just skip it, what happens? That's the moment you see the truth. Not the version of you on the vision board, not the version of you in your journal, the real version. The version your mind has been trained to default to under pressure. And that's the part people hate to admit. They don't want to look at their patterns. They don't want to admit that even though their goals are high, their mental discipline is low. They don't want to face the gap, so they keep setting goals, hoping next time will be different. But it's not, because nothing changes until the training changes. You think champions rely on goals to win? No, champions win because they've built systems that work even when they don't feel like working. The Navy SEALs don't just talk about toughness, they train it every single day. Fighters don't just visualize victory, they drill their reactions 1,000 times until they don't have to think. Entrepreneurs don't just dream of millions, they put in the boring, repetitive work of building systems and solving problems when it's unsexy and thankless, because they know what you need to know. When the moment comes, you fall to the level of your training. So if you want more, train more. Don't just set higher goals, build higher standards, practice deeper focus, strengthen your response to adversity, get under pressure on purpose, seek out the challenge, do the thing. When you're tired, show up when it's hard, stick to the plan when every part of you wants to run. That's training. That's what builds a foundation that doesn't crack when things go wrong. That's how you build a mind that can carry the weight of the life you say you want. You don't get to cheat this. You can't outsmart it. You can't fake it. Your results will always tell the truth. You can fool your followers, your friends, your family, but your life won't lie to you. If you're not getting what you want, don't blame the goal. Look at the training. Look at the systems. Look at what you do when it's not glamorous. That's where your future is built or broken. Because let me tell you something, your goals aren't asking if you're inspired, they're asking if you're prepared. Your goals aren't asking how badly you want it when everything is perfect, they're asking what you'll do when it all falls apart. And the answer comes from your training, your mindset, your discipline, your ability to take action in the absence of motivation. That's the skill no one teaches in school. That's the power most people never tap into. But you can, if you're willing to stop fantasizing and start building. If you're willing to stop hoping and start preparing. If you're willing to stop living in the highs and start digging deep into the lows, where real growth is forged. Because repetition is what rewires you. Practice is what transforms you. You don't become mentally strong by reading quotes. You become mentally strong by facing the same resistance day after day and choosing to push through. You become mentally strong by getting back up every time you fall. You become mentally strong by putting in the reps even when it's dark, even when it's lonely, even when it feels like nothing's working, because you trust the process more than you trust your emotions. You think, I feel like showing up every day. You think the greats are always in the mood. No, but they've trained themselves to move anyway, to honor the mission, not the mood. That's the difference. That's what it means to have a trained mind. And if you don't have that, your goals will destroy you, not because they're impossible, but because they demand a version of you you haven't built yet. So build it. Build it brick by brick, rep by rep. Build it by choosing hard things on purpose. Build it by rejecting shortcuts and cheap dopamine. Build it by saying no to the easy way over and over again, until your mind stops expecting comfort and starts expecting challenge. Build it by becoming someone who doesn't just want goals but is ready for them. You want to rise to the top, then dig down into the discipline. Dig into the boring stuff, the grind, the silence, the unseen hours. That's where your future is being formed, not in the vision, not in the dream, but in the repetition, in the refusal to give up, in the consistent application of effort, long after the excitement is gone. That's what training looks like. And here's the real kicker: once you train at that level, your goals actually become smaller. They don't intimidate you anymore. Why? Because you've become the kind of person who can handle them. That's what mental training does. It builds you. And once you've trained enough, you don't have to force success. It flows from who you are, from your habits, from your character, from the systems you've built when no one was looking. So stop looking up at your goals like they're mountains. Look inward. Ask yourself, have I trained for this? Have I built the resilience, the discipline, the focus to carry this dream on my back? Or am I hoping for the easy route, the perfect day, the magical motivation that makes it all effortless? Because that day isn't coming, but your power is if you build it. And it starts by letting go of the lie that goals alone will get you there. They won't. What gets you there is what you do every day when it's not convenient. That's the level that matters. That's the level that determines your life. Not the level of your goals, but the level of your mental training. Train accordingly. Every time you override that lazy voice, you take back territory in your own mind. There's a war going on inside your head, whether you realize it or not. It's a silent battle that's fought every single day, every single moment. It's not the loud kind of war, the kind with chaos and explosions. It's quieter, but it's more dangerous. It's the war between who you are and who you could be, between the voice that says, push forward, and the one that says, take it easy, between your purpose and your excuses. And every single time you give in to the lazy voice, the one that tells you to sleep in, to skip the gym, to delay the call, to wait until tomorrow, you lose ground in that war. But every time you override it, every time you feel the resistance, and you move anyway, you take back control. You take back your mind, inch by inch. Most people don't even realize that voice is there. They think it's just who they are. I'm just not motivated. I'm just tired. I don't feel like it. They identify with the voice. They believe it's truth. But it's not. It's a pattern. It's a survival mechanism. It's the part of your brain that's trying to protect you from effort, from discomfort, from risk. It doesn't understand that you're not trying to survive anymore. You're trying to grow, and growth requires friction. It requires sweat. It requires doing the exact opposite of what that lazy voice is saying. So the battle begins. And it doesn't end. That voice doesn't go away because you had one good day. It doesn't disappear because you got inspired or read a book. It's always there, waiting for a moment of weakness. That's why mental discipline is everything. Because if you don't control the voice, it controls you, and it never stops asking for control. It just whispers quietly, persistently, and it waits. It waits for the moment you're tired. It waits for when life gets hard. It waits for the perfect excuse to convince you to take your foot off the gas. And that's why overriding it matters. Not once, not occasionally, but consistently. Every override is a victory. Every override is proof that you are not your excuses, that you are not your feelings, that you are not your fear. You are the one who decides. And when you choose to move in the face of resistance, you don't just win that moment, you train your mind for the next one. Because this isn't about one battle, it's about becoming a person who wins battles by default. A person who doesn't negotiate with weakness. A person who doesn't wait for perfect conditions. A person who's trained to act, trained to execute, trained to dominate the inner enemy every time it shows its face. And let's be clear, that voice knows your weaknesses. It knows your insecurities. It knows exactly when to show up. When you're emotionally drained, when you're hungry, when you're stressed. It's in those moments that the override matters the most. Because that's where the real power is built. Not when it's easy, but when everything in you is screaming to stop. And you move forward anyway. That's reclaiming territory. That's building mental sovereignty. That's telling your mind, I'm in charge here. It's no different than going to the gym. You don't build muscle by thinking about lifting, you build it by showing up, doing the reps, feeling the pain, and doing it anyway. Your mind is the same. It's a muscle, and every override is a rep. Every override builds strength. Every override makes the next one easier. The problem is, most people are waiting to feel like it. They're waiting for the day they'll magically wake up with motivation. But that day doesn't come. The truth is, the feeling follows the action. You don't get motivated, and then act. You act, and then the motivation catches up. That's how it works. The override comes first. That's the price. That's the toll. And most people aren't willing to pay it consistently. That's why they stay stuck. That's why they stay average. Not because they lack potential, but because they surrender to the voice too soon, too often. Every time you override it, you rewrite the story. You replace the narrative. You build a new version of yourself, stronger, more disciplined, more dangerous. You stop reacting, and you start creating. You stop surviving, and you start conquering. And slowly, something shifts. The voice doesn't vanish, but it weakens. Because you've proven you're not controlled by it. You've proven you can move without its permission. And that is the most powerful kind of freedom there is. Think about it. Who would you be if you stopped listening to that voice? What could you create? How much could you grow? How many goals could you crush? If every time you heard, not today, you answered with, watch me, that version of you is not some fantasy. It's not some unreachable ideal. That version of you is on the other side of repetition, on the other side of overrides, on the other side of daily, deliberate action. And you don't have to overhaul your life overnight. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to win the next moment, just the next override, just the next rep. That's how empires are built. That's how legacies are made, one override at a time. You override when your alarm rings and you don't hit snooze. You override when the couch calls and you still lace up your shoes and go outside. You override when you want to lash out and instead you breathe. You override when your emotions say quit and you say, let's keep going. That's where your power lives. That's the gap between potential and progress. And here's the thing. The more territory you reclaim, the more momentum you build. Each override reinforces the truth that you are in charge, and eventually, that truth becomes your identity. You become the person who does the work, regardless. The person who shows up, no matter what. The person who doesn't need hype, or applause, or validation, just a mission and the discipline to fulfill it. That's the goal. That's what real strength is. Not just physical, not just emotional, but mental sovereignty. The unshakable belief that you don't need to feel good to do what needs to be done. So pay attention to the voice. Get familiar with it. Know when it shows up and what it says. It's always trying to negotiate your greatness. It's always trying to trade long-term growth for short-term ease. And every time you listen to it, you give away power. But every time you fight back, every time you move anyway, you take that power back. You become someone who owns their mind, who owns their choices, who owns their outcomes. This is your mind we're talking about. Your life, your legacy. You can't afford to keep giving the steering wheel to a voice that's trying to drive you in circles. You can't keep listening to a voice that's never built anything, never achieved anything, never risked anything. That voice has nothing to teach you but regret. But the override that teaches you strength, that teaches you mastery. So the next time you hear it, the next time you feel it pulling you away from the work, from the mission, from the growth, recognize it. Smile at it and override it. Take one more step, do one more rep, make one more decision that says, I'm not here to be ruled by weakness. I'm here to rise. That's the work. That's the fight. And it's worth every ounce of energy you've got. Because at the end of the day, the life you want, the results, the confidence, the pride, the power, it's not locked behind inspiration. It's locked behind consistency. It's locked behind self-leadership. It's locked behind override after override after override. Take your power back. Take your mind back. Every time you override that lazy voice, you take back territory in your own mind. Keep going, because every inch counts. Discipline is not restriction, it's freedom. It's how you unlock your full potential. Most people misunderstand discipline. They hear the word and immediately feel tightness in their chest, as if discipline is a punishment, a cage, something that steals joy or makes life less colorful. They think it means no fun, no breaks, no pleasure. But that mindset couldn't be more wrong. Discipline doesn't confine your life, it creates it. It's not the enemy of freedom. It's the only path to freedom, the only real one. Without discipline, you're a prisoner of your impulses, a slave to your moods, a servant to whatever distraction shouts the loudest. You think you're free, but you're not. You're being led around by invisible chains. Discipline breaks those chains. See, the world is full of people chasing freedom, chasing ease, chasing the dream life, but they're not willing to pay the price. They want results without repetition, success without sacrifice, greatness without grit. They say they want to be free to travel, free to build, free to express, free to create, but they're trapped by habits, trapped by addictions, trapped by emotional patterns that dominate them. And they don't even realize the solution isn't out there in a new job or a better plan or a lucky break. It's inside. It's already with them. It's discipline. You want freedom. Learn to control yourself. Learn to tell your body what to do and then make it do it. Learn to manage your time like your life depends on it, because it does. Learn to delay gratification. Learn to say no to the thing you want now so you can say yes to the thing that really matters later. That's real power. That's real peace. Because you can't build anything worthwhile without discipline. Not a body, not a business, not a relationship, not a legacy. All of it requires consistency. Patience, structure. All of it requires doing what needs to be done whether you feel like it or not. That's the dividing line right there. People who move by emotions and people who move by standards. The emotional ones are always reacting, always waiting for the right time, always changing direction based on how they feel. They start strong and disappear. They're excited one moment and lost the next. But disciplined people, they're different. They're steady. They don't wait for the mood, they create it through movement. They don't ask their body if it wants to train, they just train. They don't ask their mind if it feels ready, they command it to show up. Because they understand a truth most people never grasp. Freedom comes from structure. Freedom comes from saying, I don't do what I want in the moment, I do what I said I would do. That's how you build self-respect. That's how you build momentum. That's how you build a life you actually love living, not one you constantly try to escape from. Think about it. Is the person who sleeps in every day, eats whatever they want, avoids discomfort, and never finishes what they start really free? Or are they trapped in a loop of regret, anxiety, guilt, and low energy? They say they're free, but they're not free to feel good about themselves. They're not free to live without stress. They're not free to look in the mirror and like who they see. That's not freedom. That's bondage disguised as comfort. Now think about the disciplined person, the one who wakes up on purpose, the one who says no to what doesn't serve them, the one who finishes the reps, honors the schedule, stays true to their word. Are they restricted or are they winning? Because their body feels strong, their mind is clear, their emotions are steady, their life is moving forward. That's not slavery, that's sovereignty. That's owning your life instead of being owned by it. Discipline gives you confidence because you learn to trust yourself. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, you reinforce your belief that you're capable. You don't need motivation because you've built a system that moves regardless. You don't need outside validation because you've built an inner code. You don't need everything to go your way because you've trained yourself to adapt. That's what discipline gives you. It gives you the tools to build yourself. And yes, discipline is hard. It's not always fun. It demands effort, sacrifice, discomfort. But guess what? So does regret. So does living beneath your potential. So does being mediocre. Life is hard either way, you just get to choose your hard. One leads to power. The other leads to pain. One leads to purpose. The other leads to passivity. One builds freedom. The other builds a prison you don't even realize you're in until it's too late. So when people say discipline is restriction, I laugh. Restriction? Restriction is not being able to play with your kids because your body is broken. Restriction is not being able to pursue your dream because you wasted your days. Restriction is not being able to hold your head up because you keep breaking your own promises. Discipline prevents that. Discipline gives you the energy, the resources, the clarity, the strength to live the life you want. It doesn't block your joy, it makes your joy sustainable. It's like this: if your life is a fire, then discipline is the wood. Motivation might spark it, but without discipline, the fire dies out. You can't live off flashes of inspiration. You need a system, a rhythm, a commitment that doesn't waver when things get hard. That's the root of true freedom, knowing that no matter what happens, you have the structure and strength to keep moving forward. And here's the part people don't expect. Discipline leads to peace. When you live undisciplined, your mind is loud. You're always behind, always rushing, always overwhelmed. But when you're disciplined, your world becomes quiet. You're not scrambling. You're not hiding. You're not pretending. You're just showing up day after day, brick by brick, building a foundation you can stand on. That's why so many successful people talk about the power of routine. Not because it's flashy, but because it's freeing. It eliminates chaos. It removes decision fatigue. It makes room for creativity. When your foundation is set, your mind is free to focus. And when your mind is focused, you move with power. You lead with vision. You create without fear. So stop telling yourself that discipline is a burden. Stop running from structure. Stop pretending that freedom means doing whatever you want, whenever you want. That's not freedom. That's disorder. And disorder leads to chaos, and chaos leads to breakdown. Start embracing the power of structure. Choose to become the kind of person who does what they said they'd do, even when it's boring, even when it's lonely, even when no one is watching, especially then. Because that's when real character is forged. That's when identity is built. And if you're someone who's never had discipline before, it's okay. You can build it. You're not broken, you're just untrained. Start small. Start now. Pick one thing, one habit, one standard, and keep it. Just keep it. Every single day. No matter how you feel. And watch what happens. Watch how your energy shifts. Watch how your self-respect grows. Watch how other people respond to the power you begin to carry. Not because you're loud or flashy, but because you're grounded, rooted, unshakable. That's what discipline does. It creates a gravity around you. It creates presence. Because people can sense when someone lives by a code. And the world respects that. Because it's rare. Because it's real. So stop thinking of discipline as the enemy. Start thinking of it as the key, the gatekeeper, the bridge between the life you have and the life you want. Start asking yourself, not what do I feel like doing, but what did I commit to? Start living from that place of internal power, that place of alignment. Because if you can master discipline, you can master anything. You can build anything. You can become anyone. You won't just live, you'll lead. You won't just survive, you'll thrive. You won't just exist, you'll expand. So the next time someone says discipline is restriction, you'll know better. You'll know that it's the exact opposite. Discipline is freedom, and it's waiting for you to claim it. You're not broken, you're just undisciplined, and discipline can be built. It's one of the biggest lies the world has fed you, that there's something fundamentally wrong with you, that you're not good enough, that you're weak, that you're messed up beyond repair, that your inconsistency, your procrastination, your failures mean you're somehow broken inside. And you believed it, maybe because it was easier to believe that you were broken than to admit that you've just never trained properly. You've just never developed the tools, the structure, the systems, the standards, the discipline. That's it. It's not your soul that's damaged, it's your habits, and those can be rebuilt. See, the truth is, most people weren't raised to be disciplined. They were raised to be reactive, emotional, short-term focused. They were raised to chase pleasure, avoid pain, and seek approval. Nobody sat them down and said, here's how you build a mental fortress. Here's how you follow through when you don't feel like it. Here's how you master yourself when everything in you wants to quit. So they grew up thinking their failures meant they weren't enough, that other people had something they didn't, some secret wiring, some God-given switch that made them consistent and powerful while they stayed stuck. But that's not true. The difference isn't in how you were born. The difference is how you've been trained. Discipline is not some mysterious gift. It's not reserved for Navy SEALs and Olympic athletes. It's a muscle, a skill, something that grows the more you use it and weakens the more you avoid it. And just like muscle, it doesn't grow from comfort, it grows from resistance, from tension, from choosing what's hard on purpose, from doing the exact thing you don't want to do, day after day, until it becomes normal. So if you feel stuck, if you feel weak, if you feel like you always start things and never finish, stop telling yourself it's because you're broken. You're not. You just haven't built the discipline yet. But you can. You're not trapped. You're not doomed to stay this way. You just need to train. And training starts with honesty, with looking at your life and admitting that the problem isn't luck, or time, or talent. It's follow through, it's focus, it's consistency. And those things don't fix themselves. You can't journal your way into discipline. You can't manifest it. You earn it. You build it through action. And it won't feel good at first. That's the truth. Discipline never does in the beginning. It feels like friction. It feels like war. Your mind will scream. Your body will resist. That lazy voice in your head will say, "Why are we doing this? This isn't you. Just go back. Go back to comfort." But that voice is lying to you, because this is you. Not yet in full form, but in potential. And every time you override that voice, you make that potential more real. That's how it works. Not all at once, but bit by bit. You wake up on time. You get the workout in. You say no to what doesn't serve you. You finish what you start. You repeat, repeat, repeat until your nervous system gets the message. This is who we are now. And when that happens, the shift is permanent. The momentum becomes natural. And the strength you thought you'd never have becomes your new normal. Because discipline isn't about grinding yourself into exhaustion, it's about alignment. About becoming the kind of person who's in control of your mind, your time, your emotions. And you can be that person if you're willing to stop making excuses and start making choices. The choice to wake up when you said you would. The choice to work when it's boring. The choice to be excellent even when no one's watching. The choice to show up when you'd rather hide. The choice to be who you said you'd be even when you don't feel like it. That's discipline. And it's not about punishment. It's about liberation. Because what's more painful? Saying no to temporary comfort, or living every day knowing you're falling short of your potential? What's more uncomfortable? Pushing through a hard workout, or looking in the mirror and feeling shame? What costs more? The sacrifice of doing the work, or the regret of knowing you didn't? The pain of discipline is temporary. The pain of regret is forever. And if you've been living with that regret, good. Let it hurt. Let it burn. Let it wake you up, not so you can wallow in guilt, but so you can finally change. So you can draw the line and say, "I've had enough." No more excuses. No more playing small. No more lying to myself about why I'm not where I want to be. You don't need another book. You don't need another podcast. You need to act. You need to show yourself that you can do the hard thing, not once, every day. Because that's how discipline is built daily. It's not a what-I'm event. It's a process, a decision you make in the small, forgettable moments. When the snooze button calls, when the sugar cravings hit, when the phone tempts you to scroll, when nobody's watching and it would be so easy to cut corners. That's where the real training happens. And if you can win those battles, those tiny, invisible battles, everything else starts to change. And you'll fall. You'll fail. That's part of it. You'll slip up. You'll miss a rep. You'll make the wrong choice. But you don't let that become your story. You don't let one failure write your identity. You get back up, you recommit, you reset, and most importantly, you keep moving. Because discipline isn't about being perfect, it's about being relentless. It's about showing up over and over again, no matter how many times you fall. So stop waiting to feel like it. Discipline doesn't care about your mood. It doesn't care if you're tired. It doesn't care if it's raining. It doesn't care if it's inconvenient. It just asks one question. Can you honor the promise you made to yourself? And that's the question you've got to ask every single day. Not what do I feel like doing, but what did I commit to? That's where your strength is built, not in the feeling, in the follow through, in the decision to lead yourself even when your emotions try to lead you somewhere else. And don't let your past define you. Maybe you've been inconsistent. Maybe you've quit 100 times. Maybe you've never followed through on a single thing. So what? That's not who you are, that's who you were. Today is new. The clock just reset. and you get to choose. Right now, not tomorrow, not next week. Now, you can become the disciplined one, the consistent one, the dangerous one, the one who doesn't break when things get hard, the one who gets it done, no matter what. That identity is available to you, but it's not free. It costs you your excuses. It costs you your comfort. It costs you your old self. But what you get in return is worth everything. You get pride, confidence, clarity, purpose, energy, ownership. You get to look yourself in the mirror and respect the person looking back. You get to live with peace instead of regret, with results instead of promises, with momentum instead of mental chaos. So don't say you're broken. Say you're rebuilding. Say you're recommitting. Say you're becoming something unstoppable, because you are. You're not broken, you're just undisciplined. And discipline can be built starting right now. No one is coming to save you. No one's going to do it for you. It's on you. That truth will either break you or build you, and the choice is yours. You can spend your whole life waiting for the perfect moment, the right person, the magical opportunity that sets everything straight. Or you can face the reality. No one is coming. Not your parents, not your friends, not your boss, not your government, not your mentor. No one is going to hand you the discipline, the clarity, the drive, the mindset, or the results. That's your responsibility, all of it. This is your life, your mind, your future, and the only one who can transform it is you. For a lot of people, that sounds harsh, it stings, because for years they've been sold the idea that help is coming, that someone will swoop in and fix it, that one day things will magically align and the path will open. They keep hoping that someone will see them, believe in them, fight for them, lift them out of the hole. But that day never comes, because no one else can live your life for you. No one else can get inside your mind and rewire the way you think. No one else can make the choices that shape your destiny. That's your job, your sacred burden, your sacred opportunity. And it's not a punishment, it's power. When you finally stop waiting and start taking full ownership, you shift from victim to creator, from passive to powerful, from stuck to unstoppable. Because now you're not waiting for rescue, you're building your own ladder. Now you're not hoping for permission, you're taking initiative. Now you're not blaming others, you're changing yourself. That's the moment everything changes. That's the spark of transformation, when you say, enough, I'm done waiting, I'm done hoping, I'm done outsourcing my growth to the world. From this moment on, I take over, I take control, I lead my life. That's leadership, not just of others, but of yourself. And self-leadership is the rarest and most powerful trait on the planet, because the truth is, most people don't want to lead themselves. They want someone else to lead them. They want motivation to push them, circumstances to favor them, life to be easy so they don't have to build strength. They want success without struggle, reward without responsibility. But that's not how it works. The price of greatness is self-ownership. The path to power is paved with personal accountability. So if your life's not where you want it to be, own that, not with shame, not with guilt, but with courage, with clarity, with a fire that says, if I built this mess, I can rebuild it right. Because as long as you keep blaming other people or external events, you give away your power. You stay stuck. But the moment you take full, brutal, radical responsibility, you take the keys back. You put your hands on the wheel. You stop being a passenger and become the driver. That's what the greats do. They don't wait. They act. They don't complain. They adapt. They don't hope. They build. Every single person who's changed their life, every champion, every warrior, every legend, at some point they looked in the mirror and said, "This is on me." And they meant it. It didn't matter what cards they were dealt. It didn't matter how unfair it was. It didn't matter how long they had suffered or how little they had. They didn't care if they were tired or broke or scared. They just made a decision to rise, to take action anyway, to stop waiting to be saved and start becoming the savior of their own life. And you can do the same, because you're not helpless. You're not powerless. You've just been trained to think that way. You've been trained by a world that wants you dependent, a world that wants you obedient, a world that wants you soft and distracted and always looking outside yourself for the answers. But that world doesn't care about your greatness. That world doesn't benefit from your strength. So you have to choose to break free. You have to choose to wake up. Wake up to the truth. Your excuses are lies. Your limitations are mostly learned. Your past does not define you. Your failures don't mean it's over. And your future is not written yet. You hold the pen. You write the story. With every decision, with every habit, with every time you choose discipline over distraction, purpose over pleasure, growth over comfort. And it won't be easy. Taking full ownership is heavy. It means no one else is to blame. It means you have to stop hiding behind your story. It means you have to give up the comfort of being a victim and take on the weight of being a builder. But it's also the most liberating thing you'll ever do. Because now, finally, you're not waiting for life to change, you're changing your life. You're not waiting for the storm to pass, you're building a stronger ship. You're not waiting for perfect timing. You're making the moment perfect by taking action. That's power. That's freedom. That's real control. And it's yours for the taking. You just have to stop outsourcing your responsibility. Your body? That's on you. Not your genetics. Not your parents. Not your schedule. You either take care of it or you don't. You either move it, fuel it, strengthen it, or you suffer the consequences. Your mind, that's on you, not your past, not your circumstances. You either sharpen it, challenge it, elevate it, or you let it rot in negativity and weakness. Your goals, your relationships, your energy, your focus, all of it on you, not someone else, not someday. Now. So stop looking for the savior. Become the one who saves yourself. Build the habits, control the inputs, face the fear. Do the work. Stop running from the mirror and start using it as a tool. Look into your own eyes and say, no, one is coming, but I'm here and I'm ready. That's the shift. That's the moment when the game changes. Because now the pain you feel is productive. Now the pressure you feel becomes purpose. Now the weight you carry becomes a weapon. Because you've stopped asking, why is this happening to me? And started asking, what am I going to do about it? And when you live like that, truly, like that, everything changes. Your walk changes. Your posture changes. Your energy enters the room before you do. People feel it. They respect it. Because it's rare. Because it's real. Because most of the world is still waiting for someone else to do the hard part. But not you. You don't need saving. You need to keep building. You don't need perfect circumstances. You need consistent action. You don't need more time. You need to stop wasting it. You don't need approval. You need commitment. So, from this day forward, you make a vow. No more waiting. No more blaming. No more sitting on the sidelines of your own life hoping someone else calls the play. You are the playmaker. You are the answer. You are the rescue plan. Because no one is coming to save you. And that's the best news you'll ever hear. Because it means you don't have to wait another minute to change everything. All you need is already within you. You just have to own it, feed it, fight for it, and live it. No one's going to do it for you. It's on you now. And you're ready. Every time you do the hard thing when no one's watching, you build a version of yourself that no one can take from you. This world is obsessed with appearances, with what looks good, with what can be posted, praised, and liked. We live in a society where too many people do things only when there's an audience. When someone's watching, clapping, affirming. They lift heavy when the camera's on. They work hard when the boss is nearby. They act motivated when the spotlight is pointed at them. But the real work, the real grind, that happens in the dark. That happens when there's no applause, no witnesses, no external reward. That's where champions are born. That's where warriors are built. Because who you are when no one's watching is who you really are. Let that sink in. Not who you are on social media. Not who you are in the group chat. Not who you are when you're trying to impress or prove. Who you are when it's silent, when it's uncomfortable, when it's just you versus your weakness. That's your true character. And every time you choose the hard road in that silence, every time you follow through on a commitment when no one will ever know if you skipped it, you're forming a version of yourself that can't be faked, stolen, or shaken. This is the version of you that can withstand pressure because it's forged in pressure. This is the version of you that doesn't crumble when things get hard, because it's built through hard. And the only way to meet that version of you is to embrace the dark places, the early mornings, the late nights, the unseen reps, the hard choices, the lonely discipline. That's the sacred ground where your future is being shaped. Because the truth is, when the lights go off, and the show ends, and the hype dies down, all you're left with is you, your habits, your standards, your disciplines. And if those things are shallow, if they were only ever built for performance and not for purpose, they will collapse under pressure. That's why the external rewards never satisfy. That's why the likes and the followers and the attention never feel like enough, because deep down, you know whether your strength is real or not. Real strength doesn't need validation. Real strength doesn't need to be seen. Real strength shows up when there's nothing to gain but growth. That's what separates the few from the many. Most people want the crown, but they don't want the cave. They want the recognition, but they don't want the repetition. They want the transformation, but they don't want the isolation that comes with doing the right thing when no one's watching. But if you want to build a life that lasts, if you want to become unshakable, you have to love the dark. You have to love the morning alarm that no one will ever thank you for setting. You have to love the workout when no one's keeping score. You have to love the journaling, the stretching, the studying, the reps, the self-talk, the quiet discipline, because that's what builds internal armor. And you know what's crazy? The more you train in silence, the less you need the noise. The more you keep your word to yourself in the dark, the less you care about outside approval. The more you fall in love with doing the hard things for you, the more unstoppable you become, because now your fuel isn't coming from hype. It's coming from within. That's self-respect. That's identity. That's the kind of self-built power that no one can give you and no one can take. You want to know why some people walk differently, talk differently, carry themselves like giants? It's not because they were born confident. It's because they've been through the fire of private discipline. They've been tested when no one saw, and they passed those tests. They've looked in the mirror and known, I can trust myself. I don't flinch when it's hard. I don't fold when no one's watching. I do the work no matter what. That's what gives you presence. That's what gives you weight when you walk into a room. It's not about being loud, it's about being solid. It's about being grounded in truth. And that truth is built through thousands of invisible decisions. Because the truth is, your life is made in those quiet choices, when you choose to read instead of scroll, when you choose to prep instead of wing it, when you choose to stretch instead of sit, when you choose to speak life into yourself instead of giving into doubt. No one sees those moments, but they are everything. And it's not about being a robot. It's not about perfection. You'll miss. You'll fall. You'll have days when you don't follow through. But if you keep coming back, if you keep showing up when there's no glory, that compounds, that builds something. And that something is a version of you that can be trusted with big things. Because life doesn't give great rewards to people who only work when it's easy. Life gives great rewards to people who've proven they can carry weight, And you prove that by training when it's not sexy, when it's just you. When the alarm rings at 4:30 a.m. and it's dark outside and your mind says, "Who's gonna know if you skip?" And you say, "I'll know." That's the standard. That's the line. And every time you honor that, you're creating a future self who is bulletproof. And guess what? That's the version of you the world needs, not the people pleaser, not the performer, not the fake it till you make it mask. The world needs your real, raw, forged in silence, unshaken by storms, because you've already faced them in private. You won't get that by performing. You'll get it by practicing. You'll get it by doing the work no one sees, over and over and over again. Because when life falls apart, and it will, what saves you won't be your appearance. It won't be your followers. It won't be your status. It'll be your habits, your discipline, your internal structure, your character. And that's either built or broken in the hidden places. So if you're in a season where no one sees your work good, that's where the good stuff is born. That's where the roots grow deep. Don't curse the silence. Don't resent the solitude. Use it. That's your edge. That's your advantage. While everyone else is chasing the spotlight, you're building something real. Because one day, the moment will come, the opportunity will arrive, the light will turn on, and when it does, you won't have to rise to the occasion. You'll default to your training. You'll perform how you practiced. You'll show up how you've always shown up. And people will say, "Where did this come from?" And you'll know it came from the lonely mornings, the uncelebrated nights, the unseen reps, the hard choices, the private battles that no one clapped for, but you kept fighting anyway. That's the difference. That's where mastery begins. So the next time you feel like skipping the work, because no one will know, remember that you will. And every time you keep your word in the dark, you're building a light that no darkness can extinguish. That's your power. That's your edge. That's your future. Train like no one's watching, because that's how you become someone unstoppable when they finally do. You rise or fall based on the standards you refuse to compromise. Your life is not built on what you say you want. It's built on what you're willing to tolerate. That's the line. That's the truth. You can dream all day. You can post quotes and make vision boards and talk about your goals like they're already yours. But none of that means anything if your standards are weak, if your standards are soft, if your standards bend every time comfort calls, every time pressure hits, every time you don't feel like showing up. Because ultimately, you don't get what you wish for. You get what you're willing to demand from yourself. Consistently. The harsh truth. Your life right now is a reflection of your standards, not your intentions, not your hopes, your standards. What you allow, what you repeat, what you let slide, what you call just this once. Every skipped rep, every ignored alarm, every compromised promise adds up. It becomes your identity, and your identity becomes your destiny. That's why some people stay stuck year after year, spinning in circles, talking about change but never living it. They never raised their standards. They just raised their expectations. They wanted more, but they didn't require more from themselves, so the results didn't come. Not because they weren't capable, but because their floor was too low. Their minimums were weak. Their boundaries were vague. Their musts were actually maybes. But there's another path. There's a way to shift everything, not by waiting for the stars to align, but by getting brutally clear about what is no longer acceptable in your life, about what you're done allowing, done excusing, done tolerating. It starts with drawing a line in the sand and saying, "This is my new baseline. This is the version of me I live from now, not occasionally, not when I feel like it, always." This is where discipline becomes identity. This is where self-respect begins. Because when you truly raise your standards, you start acting different, thinking different, moving different. Not because someone's forcing you, but because you've made a decision. You've looked at your old patterns, your lazy habits, your half-finished plans and said, never again. This is what separates the uncommon from the average. The uncommon don't have superpowers. They just live from higher standards. They don't tolerate excuses. They don't compromise execution. They don't accept average, even when they're tired, even when it's hard, especially then, because that's where the real test is. Not when everything is going your way, but when you're tempted to settle, tempted to lower the bar, tempted to give yourself an out and you don't. That's what builds unshakable confidence. Not hype, not words, standards, the daily, non-negotiable behaviors you commit to regardless of how you feel, because you know who you are, and you refuse to betray that. And it's not about perfection. It's not about becoming some flawless machine. It's about integrity, alignment. It's about honoring the line you drew, even when it costs you. Especially when it costs you. Because that's where your power is, in the sacrifice, in the follow-through, in the moments you want to quit, but your standards won't let you. You see, when your standards are high enough, the decision is already made. You don't need to wrestle with willpower. You don't need to negotiate with your mind. You just act, because you don't break your code. You don't go below the bar. You don't return to your old level because that level is dead to you. That's the version of you the world hasn't met yet. The version that no longer waits to feel ready, but lives ready. The version that stops chasing motivation and starts creating momentum. The version that doesn't settle for almost, kinda, or good enough, because you know deep down, those words are killing your potential. You know that every compromise chips away at your confidence. You know that every time you settle, you shrink. So if you want to grow, really grow, it's time to set a higher bar. Not for what you want, but for what you require. Raise the floor. Build a standard that protects your potential, that guards your greatness, that says, I may not control the world, but I control me. Control what time you wake up. Control how you treat your body. Control the words you speak to yourself. Control your inputs, your food, your media, your circle. Control how you respond. When things go sideways, these are the controllables. These are the standards. And they matter more than you think, because they shape your state, and your state drives every decision. Get sloppy here, and everything starts to slip. Get strong here, and you become unshakable. And here's the thing. Raising your standards doesn't mean living with constant pressure. It doesn't mean you hate yourself into discipline. It means you respect yourself too much to settle. It means you care too deeply about your future to waste the present. It means you're done pretending average is okay, because it's not. Average doesn't feel good. Average doesn't build legacies. Average doesn't change lives. But standards do. You don't have to change everything overnight. You don't have to go from zero to perfect. But you do have to start. Pick one area of your life and raise the bar. Maybe it's how you show up at work. Maybe it's how you treat your body. Maybe it's how you use your time. But raise it, declare it, and hold it, without exception, without excuse. Because every time you compromise a standard, you teach yourself that your word means nothing. You reinforce weakness. But every time you keep a standard, even when it hurts, you grow stronger. You grow prouder. You grow freer. And that freedom compounds. Because here's what they don't tell you. High standards create peace. When your standards are locked in, your decisions get simpler. Your path gets clearer. Your confidence grows. Because you're no longer wondering if you'll do the right thing. You know you will. You've already decided. And over time, people start to notice. They may not say it. They may not understand it. But they feel it. There's something different about you. Something steady. Something sharp. Something solid. Because standards don't just change your results, they change your aura. They change the energy you carry. They make you magnetic. Why? Because in a world of compromise, a person with standards is rare. And what's rare becomes valuable. So don't hide your standards. Don't shrink them to make other people comfortable. Don't apologize for having non-negotiables. Set the bar, lock it in, and invite the world to rise with you or get left behind. Because this isn't just about you. When you raise your standards, you give others permission to raise theirs. When you stop settling, you show people what's possible. When you demand more from yourself, you inspire others to do the same. That's leadership. That's impact. And it all starts with a decision. A decision to never again lower your bar to meet the world instead. Raise it so the world has to rise to meet you. Because in the end, you don't become extraordinary by doing what's easy. You become extraordinary by doing what's required. And what's required is simple. Set the standard. Refuse to compromise, and let the results speak for themselves.